I invite everyone to take a nice, deep, cleansing breath, breathing in this cool, calming air, holding it, and then as you breathe out all stress and tension you may be holding in your body, releasing all doubts, releasing all anxiety. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice deep breath, breathing in life itself, breathing in revitalization, breathing in relaxation, breathing in source energy. And as you breathe out, let go all that no longer serves you. Allow yourself to relax in this moment. Allow your body to find rest and peace and harmony and unity. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
A bunch of us were on a Zoom call the other night, and somebody who's never been to Creative Life but is working with us said to Danielle, I just love you. Danielle's like, but you have never met me. She says, but I see you every Sunday, and I have a big screen TV that I cast you onto, and so I see you full size standing there, not just a little bitty tile. So, well, a couple of weeks ago I gave the annual Halloween talk. I suppose this is the annual Thanksgiving talk. But I want to encourage you to attend next week and every Sunday for the rest of your lives, but especially next Sunday, because after the regular service, we're going to have our annual testimonial service that we had done on Thanksgiving Eve, but it's complicated to pull that off right now. So it will last maybe an hour, and there will be a Zoom component as well for all our out-of-town friends. This is a chance for you to share relatively briefly what you're grateful for in your life and what we've found over the years. We've been doing this particular service since 1989, and at which point I had just been giving a Thanksgiving Eve talk, and somebody said, can I share something? And it turned into everybody sharing and me giving no talk. That in itself could be enticement. But what we found over the years is that people will get up and they'll say, I had a really miserable year, and I'm grateful because I learned this and this and this about myself. If nothing else, I learned I can withstand a really miserable year. I am resilient. I am strong, you know. And then some people have had miraculous things happen. I mean, out of the blue things happen. I mean, not a chance in the rain things happen, and they get up and share that. But you don't even have to get up and share. And we got into a bad habit, and Lisa will tell you about this. We got into a bad habit at one point because we would start, if somebody hadn't shared, we would start chanting their name. And that's not good. It was meant with respect, but it was, so now we don't do that anymore. And so if you want to just sit and listen to what other people have to say and come away with what you come away with, that's great. So again, this is next Sunday after the 11 o'clock service, therefore 12:15, let's say, runs 12:30. 12:30 to set up, that's right, because we got to put up the Zoom. So 12:30, and we'll take you from there. So what I wanted to talk about today, this is in a series about the thankful heart, having a thankful heart. And I think sometimes we get too abstract in the presentation of this teaching when we say things like there is one life and one mind and one intelligence, all of which is true, but it's sort of hard to grasp. Like, well, what does this mean to me today? Or as the late, great Dr. Fred Vogt used to say, people would say to him at his church after he gave a talk on something like that, they'd come up and say, sounds great. Now, what do I do? Sounds great. So what do I do? So Maya Angelou, I found a quote from Maya Angelou. She says, let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel when you say your nightly prayers. Isn't that beautiful? Let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel when you say your nightly prayers. Do you say nightly prayers? You say daily prayers? Prayers are good. Prayers are good to have regular prayer life, you know, to have a regular spiritual life. Now, I don't typically kneel anymore when I pray, unless I'm in somebody else's church. I may stand, sit, recline, but it's a metaphor. Let gratitude be the basis upon which you rest when you have this knowing. Look, last week I was talking about affirmations and how an affirmation, no matter how glorious, has to be real to the person who's making it. They have to be able to accept it. We have to be able to accept our own affirmations. Else they go nowhere. Then they're just slogans. Then they're just the stuff embroidered on pillows, you know? Those nice thoughts, but they don't click, they don't connect unless we feel them. So the idea there was to create affirmations for ourselves that are believable and incremental, so that then we can build on the previous affirmation. It's kind of like making affirmations out of Lego. You take a piece and you stick another piece on it, you stick another piece on it, and you're like, yeah, I can do this. And you craft the affirmation all the way up into an affirmative prayer that you can accept within yourself. Because if you get to the point where in affirming something, you say to yourself, yeah, like that'll happen, all of a sudden you drop down a few pegs in conviction. And it's not a long jump from there to despair, to will anything ever get better than it appears to be now? So we take the affirmation. So what can I affirm right now today that I believe about myself? What can I affirm about myself today that's just a little bit further along than what I was affirming about myself yesterday? And you come up with an idea, and you wrap your mind around it, and you feel it, and you internalize it. And the next thing you know, there's a support mechanism that manifests for it. This is a little recap from last week, but many of you weren't here. So the manifestation that follows the affirmation is not necessarily the Brinks truck drives up and unloads itself on your lawn. Okay, the manifestation is not necessarily the gold mine. The manifestation for the affirmation and the consequential treatment that you give is an improvement at the level of feeling. And I can't stress this enough, and it's going to be a feature of a lot of the talks coming up in December and into January about how what we really want in our lives is an improved state of feeling rather than a different set of conditions. Different set of conditions might be nice, might be really nice. But how will we know we have a different set of conditions if we don't feel like we do? And the trick then is to have the feeling, call up the feeling first. Trick is maybe the wrong word, it makes us skeptical. Let's say shortcut, or let's say hack. The hack, that's the new word. And you'll also know that when I say this is the new word for something, I'm talking about 5 years ago, because it takes me a while to catch up with the popular culture, right? So, okay, so have you heard this great new song? So the hack is to have the feeling, to call up the feeling in advance. Nobody taught us we could do this. In fact, we were taught quite the reverse. You're not entitled to have the feeling until the thing shows up. You're not entitled to be grateful until there's visible improvement that you can qualify and quantify, you know. And so what we did much of the time was wait. We sat and we waited. When there's a better world, I'll send somebody a note and thank them for it, you know. And we waited, and we waited, and the sun came up, and the sun went down, and it was like a Dudley Do-Right cartoon or something, you know. And it just, and time passed, and nothing much changed, and we got tired of it and kind of moved on to something else, which was typically cleverness and cynicism and armor, a shell that we put around ourselves, around our feeling nature. To feel as though life is really good now takes some editing in mind, because whenever we say that to ourselves, our habit by training is to bring up the long list of reasons why it's not, why things aren't all that, or why things are really sweet right now, but next Thursday afternoon they might not be, or by February, or because there's always something, and the clock is ticking and we're not getting any younger. So we have this long list of things about why not to be grateful, because God forbid we should be inordinately grateful and have the rug pulled out from under us. So then, you know what we start to do is we start to expect the rug to be pulled out from under us, and we start pulling the rug ourselves. Okay? And the whole thing becomes a mechanism that in circularity. We get what we expect, or we get what we want to expect, or we get what we prepare for. So all of that having been said, this being, if you're new to this, the science of spiritual psychology along with everything else. To be grateful now, right now, not a minute from now, right now. For what? For what? You're here. You're alive. You breathe. You have family. You have friends. You might not like all of your family. That's an issue around the holidays, okay? You might not trust all of your friends. Okay, stop that. Stop that. Just for a minute. You have family. You have friends. You have plans. You have goals. You have dreams. You have ambitions. You have all of these things. You have a beautiful day outside. Okay, it's a little cold. I'm wearing a sweater. People online are astonished. This is Texas. It's okay. The weather's maybe not exactly like you'd like it to be, but it's a beautiful day outside. And there's nature, and there's animals, and there's children, and there's movies, and there's food. There's Thanksgiving. And you can have your big turkey made of tofu, because you're a conscious human, you know, and enjoy it and consume it with other loved ones at the table. And from all of this, you extract reasons for gratitude. Let's talk about that table. Your Thanksgiving table. I'm going to rhapsodize on your Thanksgiving table. At your Thanksgiving table, you may have more people this year than you had last year. There may be children born into the family, people married in, people, boyfriends, girlfriends, and you know, all of this. You might invite the neighbors, might invite some friends, might have a huge spread, lots and lots of people. And there might be some people missing. There might be some people who moved away. There might be some people who passed away from your Thanksgiving table. All of these people have consciousness. Each of these people has a consciousness. Each of these individuals has a consciousness containing memory and sensation. And when they're in your house or you're in theirs, there's a collective consciousness that's formed by virtue of all of these consciousnesses being together in a unified purpose. And everybody has memories, and everybody's having at exactly the same moment a different experience than everybody else of what's going on, the conversation, the meal, and so on. And yet everybody agrees that we're here and we're doing this. And everybody has a different memory of the people who aren't there, as well as a different experience of the new people who are there. And it gets even more complicated than that, because in the Halloween talk and around that time I was mentioning about the veil being thin between, and I said, of course it's thin, it's a veil. Well, all of the ancestors are there, and all of their memories are there, in and around you. I've never wanted to think that the people who stepped out of my life, stepped out of my Thanksgiving, stepped out of my holidays, stepped out of birthdays and things like this. You know, there's an experience of unity there in consciousness that's contained in an unseen realm, so we don't give it a lot of credit. We say, well, it's an unseen realm. If it were really real, it would be seen. Well, everything that's seen comes out of the unseen. It doesn't take a lot of work to realize that. Where were you before you were here? You were somewhere. Where was every invention and discovery and that piano and everything else before it was here? Well, it was an idea. Where do ideas exist? In the unseen realm. Then they come into the seen realm, okay? So the unseen realm is really where it's at, because stuff comes here into the seen, into the perceived realm, and it immediately begins to redistribute itself back into potential. Everything that's in form, including the bodies that we wear, in that process of gradual disintegration, shall we call it, back into pure potential. So what lives? What continues? Consciousness. Consciousness is what continues. Consciousness is the template on which everything else is constructed. So when you sit down on Thursday, or any time, you have your consciousness, which is bigger than you think it is, and not contained just within the cranium, but you have the consciousness of everyone who's ever loved you, everyone whose thoughts have ever turned your way. All your ancestors, including the ones who never heard of you. Because people don't often think of, where's my family going to be 10 generations from now, because there's too much going on in the moment. And why I bring this up, it's not to creep you out with the thought that you've got all these people hovering around you ghost-like at your Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, it's do you need something to be grateful for? Look at what all's there, okay? I'm grateful for a guy named Uncle Harold. Uncle Harold was my uncle by marriage. Some of you have heard Uncle Harold stories out of me before, okay? It's a long story, and I won't take you through the whole thing now, but let's suffice it to say Uncle Harold was real different from the rest of the family. Okay? He married in, he was real different, and he was beloved, but he was real different. Because the rest of the family, my biological family, they were a little proper. They were a little formal and old school, and I was way younger. I was an only child, and I was way younger than anyone else, obviously, and my mother was the fourth of four, and she was way younger than her sisters, so in other words, everybody was old. Or what I thought was old. Surprise, what I thought was old at the time. So I'm this little kid, and there's all this stuff going around, and Harold was much older than his wife, my Aunt Joyce. In fact, he was somewhere between her age and her mother's age, my grandmother's age. Have I totally confused you now? Okay. So, An enduring memory I have of him was that my grandmother, would make Thanksgiving dinner. We'd have the family over, and it wasn't a big family, but people would bring friends and stuff, and so there'd be, I don't know, 12 or 14 eating, and a turkey, not tofu, about this size. And my grandmother would prepare it, and my Uncle Harold, because it was a big, heavy thing, he would carry it in. Now, this maybe only happened 3 or 4 times that I recall in my childhood, but the story that I tell myself is it was forever. This happened all the time. And so, you know, you do that when you're a kid. If it happened once, it happens all the time. And so he would go out in the kitchen, get the turkey for her, and as he was bringing it to the table, he would pretend to trip in the doorway with this thing. And one year, the thing almost slid off the platter it was on. And my grandmother swore at him, proper, but she could swear, and she swore at him, and the other grown-ups all kind of rolled their, oh God, Harold, you know, and I died laughing. I thought it was so funny. I almost fell off my chair. This was just great. And so he would work on entertaining me. I would sit by him at these holiday events and stuff, and while everybody else was having grown-up important conversations, he was doing stuff like taking his napkin and turning it into a stage curtain and rolling it up and making faces at me, you know, and it was just great. So Harold left this world in 1982, okay? How old was Harold? Harold was so old he started out his work as a mechanic. He wound up being a portrait photographer. That's what he did for most of his life, but he started, and he was really good at mechanical stuff. He worked on Model Ts when they were new, okay? Well, I bring you this story because you've got one of these people in your life, maybe more than one. You got the clown of the family, you got the person who kind of broke the ice, you know, made it, and who related to you, especially when you were young, related to you, instead of the way that grown-ups often relate to kids, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like what you're doing right now isn't important, you know? Where are you going to go to college? And, or sit up straight, or don't eat with that fork, or whatever. You get somebody who speaks to you on this kind of childlike level, you know, and it totally relates. You've got somebody like this. Invite them on Thursday. Doesn't matter if they've been gone 40 years. Invite them on Thursday, and they'll be there. They'll be there. Where will they be? In you. You know, if you want, you can set a place for them at the table. It's a nice symbolic, kind of ritualistic thing to do, but it's not absolutely necessary. They're in a different realm now, but they're still thinking of you. This is what I mean by gratitude. And here's one more thing for you. If you don't have somebody like this, you can borrow mine. You can borrow Uncle Harold. He's in spirit now, so he's portable. And he can multi-locate. So he can be at my house and your house and everybody's house. Seriously. You can make this stuff up. If you don't have something to be grateful for in your life, somebody else does. And you can look at them and say, can I borrow that for a while? Okay? There was an item in the paper this morning about a guy with the Conroe Fire Department, I think it is, who has decided that he wants to learn how to play the bagpipes because it's customary at fire and police, funerals particularly, but any high dudgeon sort of ceremony to have a bagpiper. Goes way back to when a lot of the Irish were in service up in the Northeast. And so this guy's trying to learn the bagpipes, and he says, man, it's difficult. He says, did you know 90% of all people who try to learn the bagpipes give up? And of the other 10%, not many are good. And I can only imagine that the last thing you pretty much want to hear is bad bagpipes, okay? But he says, you know, there's the sack and the drone and the timing and the coordination, and then you got to know music and be able to read music and all of the rest of this stuff. And why is this guy doing this? 2 reasons is my take on it. One is he wants to see if he can. The second is he wants to be of service in some way. He wants to cause people to feel something. Why have bagpipes? Because it makes you feel something. They make you feel something. Things make us feel something, you know? So if you're looking for something to do in your life, if you're looking, maybe you don't have any goals right now. Maybe, you've checked off your list and you're kind of in a space of sort of coasting or whatever. Invite into your consciousness the consciousness of the guy that's going to the trouble to learn the bagpipes for no other reason than to bring peace or closure or an upswell of feeling to other people and say, yeah, I want that. I want that. Look at all of the people who are going to be working on Thursday giving out free meals around the city. Look at all of the people we tried to yesterday. The weather got in our way, but it's not our last time by a long shot. Well, look at all of the things that you could involve yourself in that involve pulling something out of the unseen to enrich the life of somebody else. And if you're not doing that right now, I'm not here to yell at you and say you ought to, because I'm not doing enough of it. None of us is, What I am saying is that's an expression of gratitude. And an expression of gratitude can build a consciousness of gratitude just like the reverse is true. So we get to this place where we say, I'm grateful for this. Like Dag Hammarskjöld said, another good Scandinavian, he said, for all that has been, thanks. For all that will be, yes. For all that will be, yes. So I wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. A magical Thanksgiving. The greatest Thanksgiving you've had so far until next Thanksgiving, when this one pales by comparison. I know this for each of us. And I hope to see you next Sunday and hear tales of wisdom and wonder of the amazing things that have been occurring in your life. Let's know together now, there is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit. And we take it from abstraction to concrete knowing. This one is right where I am, as I am, expressing through me, moving from a place that is dimensionless, beyond space and time, into this world, into this time, in this space, in this table, in these chairs, in this company. And I choose to look for the good and praise it. Look for the good and adopt it as a function of my life. So if somebody somewhere is learning a musical instrument, there's a part of me doing that. If somebody somewhere is learning how to be a parent, there's a part of me doing that. If there's somebody somewhere having a cosmic consciousness experience where it seems the walls of the world just melt away into pure resonating spirit, there's a part of me that's doing that. Because there is one life, that life is fully present at every point within itself, and one of those points is me. One of those points is each person who's hearing this. And right at that point is the fullness and wholeness of not just spirit, not just the creative element, but what it creates. Everything we might want. So ideas occur to us, new goals, new plans, new collaborations, new compassions. And everything fits together. And everything makes sense. Up to the point where sense is no longer a requirement because we stand in awe, in astonishment. For always behind all things stands the great mystery of why. Why this is so, why this life, why this love, why this power, to which there is no answer. Just a beckoning forward. For this knowing, the way that it manifests in form in the life of each one of us, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is. And I want to thank everyone else for being here again. We love to see you. We love your energy. We love the fact that you come and give to us everything that you give to us, your time, your energy, your love, your monetary donations. We are so very grateful for. Because you are here, we can be here and give to you. And now I invite you to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Now I'm going to use this one. You know. I always wonder if there's enough oxygen up there for Brian. Yeah. Reverend Jesse was talking about bagpipes. Of course, he omitted the fact that Scots are probably the biggest users of bagpipes. And the answer with bagpipes is it's always blowing in the wind. But on a more serious note, the practitioners, Shirley Sandler is going to be the practitioner in the room. Online, it will be Michael Levinson. The bookstore will be open for 15 or 20 minutes after the service, and either Monica will be there or I will be there. One of us will be there. You know, I'm sure most of you heard that there was a horrible incident in Colorado Springs, you know, where people were killed in a gay lesbian bar. And I know these things go on all the time. Reverend Jesse is always encouraging us to do one thing, and that's to hold the high watch. And by holding the high watch, we look for the good in everything. Ernest Thomas never told us to avoid what was going on. He told us to look a discordant fact in the face and then to move away from it and to go into prayer and see the situation, the world, as we want to see it. So I'm encouraging each of us today to go and do that. To just, when these things happen, remember, our thoughts, our prayers are powerful. They're incredibly powerful. And when enough of us are actually praying in the direction of good, then good will become the constant in the world. So I am knowing for each and every one here that they know who they are, that they are available to Spirit to lift themselves up, to hold that high watch. And I'm knowing for each and every person in this world that they too begin to realize who they are. And I claim that as the world moves on and more of us move into the consciousness of wholeness, that this becomes the norm in our world. And I claim that this is truth. And in true, deep gratitude, I release this into the law, and I call it done, and so it is. So it is. However, I've got one more thing, because, well, this is supposed to be a benediction, right? So here we are. If I can pull this up. Good? I don't know what's happened here. Anyway, let me see if I can remember it. This is an Irish blessing. I'm sure some of you know it, yeah? May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of God's hand.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose
I
it.
trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
So it is.
It got to be stretched out.
I know, right?
Yeah, I had
I
to
needed
go
it
on
on
this
that side,
Yeah, I needed it on this side.